This quote by Alfred de Souza best describes life. For a long time, it had seemed to me that life was about to begin, the real life. But there was always some obstacle in the way, something to be gotten through first, some unfinished business, time still to be served, or a debt to be paid. Then life would begin. At last, it dawned on me that these obstacles were my life.
Let's begin with Rule 1. The memento mori rule. Remember, you'll die. There's a quiet clarity that comes when you truly face the brevity of life. Most people spend their days as if time were endless, as if each morning were guaranteed. Yet, psychology and philosophy both tell us that awareness of death is not morbid, it's liberating. When we confront our mortality, our priorities reorder themselves with startling precision. Suddenly, trivial irritations fade, grudges lose their power, and what truly matters rises to the surface. In existential psychology, this awareness is often called mortality salience. It suggests that by remembering our impermanence, we are nudged towards a more authentic existence. We begin to live intentionally rather than reactively. The Stoics practice this through daily reminders of death. Memento mori, remember you must die. Not to depress the spirit, but to sharpen it. It's a call to urgency, to presence, to gratitude for the fleeting beauty of now.
When you keep death in mind, you stop postponing life. You tell people you love them. You create rather than consume. You realize that every hour wasted in distraction or resentment is an hour you will never reclaim. Modern psychology agrees. Studies show that reflecting on death often increases pro-social behavior, creativity, and appreciation for simple joys. Death awareness can paradoxically make you more alive. The truth is, life only gains meaning when it is framed by its ending. A book without a final page is unreadable, and the life without limits would be equally hollow. By remembering that everything ends, you learn to cherish what exists. Each sunrise, each conversation, each breath becomes something sacred. You don't need more time. You need more awareness of the time you already have.
Rule 2. The paradox of control. Focus only on what you can influence. Life becomes infinitely lighter when you stop wrestling with what was never yours to control. Yet most suffering is born from this very mistake. The illusion that we can bend the world to our will. People, outcomes, timing, luck, we grasp for all of them. And in the process, we tighten the knots of our own frustration. Psychology calls this the locus of control, the extent to which you believe you have power over what happens in your life. Those with an internal locus take responsibility for their actions. Those with an external locus blame circumstances or fate. But the paradox lies in knowing the boundary, what truly belongs to you and what does not. Stoicism teaches that freedom is found within this line. When you focus on what you can influence, your thoughts, choices, responses, you reclaim your peace. When you chase what lies beyond that boundary, anxiety becomes your constant companion. Cognitive behavioral therapy echoes this ancient insight. It shows that much of our emotional distress comes from trying to control the uncontrollable, demanding that others act differently, that the past had gone another way, that the future unfolds exactly as we wish. But life rarely obeys. The wise learn to accept this as part of the human condition. Acceptance is not surrender, it is clarity. It's the understanding that your effort matters, but your attachment does not. You can pour your heart into the work, but you cannot dictate the result. When you embrace this paradox, your energy shifts. You act without desperation. You do your best and let go. True strength is not in domination, but in discernment. Knowing what deserves your effort and what deserves your silence. Master that, and peace follows naturally.
Rule 3. The law of 80-20 attention.
Not all effort is equal. There's a quiet truth that most of us learn too late. Effort and results rarely travel in equal measure. You can spend 10 hours in noise and distraction, or 1 hour in deep, focused creation, and the outcomes will be worlds apart. The mind loves activity, but progress comes only from effectiveness. This is the essence of the 80-20 principle, first described by economist Vilfredo Pareto and now confirmed by decades of behavioral research. 80% of your meaningful results often come from 20% of your efforts. Psychology shows that the human brain is a pattern detector, not a machine of pure productivity. We feel busy when we're scattered, checking messages, switching tasks, attending endless meetings, but busyness is a poor substitute for focus. When our attention is divided, our mental energy fragments. Attention residue, as cognitive scientists call it, bleeds away our depth. The more we split our focus, the less of ourselves we bring to anything.
The key, then, is selective concentration. You must identify what genuinely moves your life forward, the small set of actions that yield disproportionate impact. For one person, it might be a morning of undistracted work. For another, a single honest conversation. When you start asking, what truly matters here, your schedule begins to purify itself. This rule is not about doing less, but about doing the right less. The art of wise attention is choosing to pour yourself only where meaning compounds. In a short life, scattered effort is self-sabotage. But disciplined focus, that rare and deliberate use of attention, is how a person turns time into something enduring. Rule 4. The momentum principle. Action beats motivation. Most people wait for motivation like it's a spark that must strike before the fire begins. But psychology tells a different story. Action often comes first, and motivation follows. The momentum principle reminds us that movement itself generates energy. The smallest act, once begun, has the power to wake the sleeping mind. Behavioral science calls this the activation energy problem, the initial resistance that makes beginning the hardest part of any task. Once the first step is taken, the brain releases dopamine, a reward chemical that reinforces progress. Each small success, each box ticked, builds a feedback loop that strengthens drive. In this way, discipline becomes its own fuel. You no longer need to wait to feel inspired. You act, and inspiration arrives as your companion. The Stoics understood this centuries before modern psychology confirmed it. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be. Then do what you have to do. Not think or feel, but do." The doing reshapes the feeling. Movement builds confidence, and confidence sustains action. The paradox is clear. Motivation is not the cause of progress, but the result of it. In cognitive behavioral terms, action reprograms thought. By changing what you do, you change how you think about yourself. A person who writes daily stops calling themselves unmotivated. They simply become a writer. So, if life is short, don't wait for perfect conditions. Begin with small, humble steps. Send one email. Take one walk. Write one line. The river doesn't flow because it's inspired. It flows because that's its nature. Let motion become yours. Rule 5. The law of psychological distance. Zoom out to zoom in. When we're trapped inside our thoughts, even small problems feel enormous. Every doubt echoes louder. Every inconvenience becomes personal. Yet, psychology reveals something remarkable. When we take a step back, mentally or emotionally, the storm quiets. This is known as psychological distance, the ability to observe your life as if from the outside. It's not detachment born of coldness, but clarity born of perspective. In cognitive science, this concept helps people reason more wisely. Studies show that when individuals imagine advising a friend with their own problem, they make calmer, better decisions. This is called self-distancing.
The shift is subtle but profound. You go from being the actor lost in the play to the director watching from the audience. Suddenly, you see context. You see patterns. You see that what felt like the end of the world is often a passing scene.
The Stoics practiced this long before psychology gave it a name. Marcus Aurelius would write to himself as if to another soul, observing his fears with a philosopher's distance. You have power over your mind, he reminded himself, not outside events. When you zoom out, you remember that truth. You are not your emotions, but the observer of them. Practicing psychological distance doesn't mean apathy. It means proportion. It allows you to respond rather than react, to discern the meaningful from the momentary. When you can step back from your own chaos, you regain command of your mind. In a short life, perspective is freedom. The closer you stand to the noise, the less you see. But when you zoom out, when you look at your life from the view of years instead of minutes, you realize how few things are truly worth your peace.
Rule 6, the rule of deep work. Protect your focus like a fortress. Attention is the rarest form of wealth. In a world designed to scatter it, depth has become a rebellion. Every notification, every flashing feed, every whisper of "check this now" is a thief at the gate of your mind. The rule of deep work reminds us that true creation, true progress, and true fulfillment are born only in states of undisturbed focus. Neuroscience shows that the brain needs long stretches of uninterrupted concentration to reach flow, that effortless immersion where skill meets challenge. In that state, time dissolves and the self expands. But constant distraction rewires the mind towards shallowness. Each interruption forces your brain to reload context, wasting mental energy. This is called attention residue. It leaves you exhausted without having done anything meaningful.
To protect your focus is to defend your very consciousness. The Stoics guarded their inner peace with the same vigilance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." To practice deep work is to live this philosophy in the digital age. You choose to engage deliberately rather than drift passively. Psychologically, deep focus is not merely productivity, it's self-integration. When your attention aligns with your values, you become whole. The mind, instead of scattering, begins to harmonize. Build rituals around your focus. Design sacred hours where no one can reach you. Treat your attention like a temple, quiet, orderly, and off-limits to trivial noise. The reward is not just more output, but more peace. In a short life, shallow living feels endless, yet empty, but a single hour of pure concentration, directed towards something meaningful, can outweigh entire weeks of distraction. Guard your focus fiercely. It's where your finite time becomes infinite in impact.
Rule 7. The hedonic adaptation trap. Stop chasing constant pleasure. Human beings are wired to adapt, and that is both our strength and our suffering. The first time you buy something new, achieve a goal, or fall in love, your brain floods you with reward chemicals. Yet soon, that same joy fades. The extraordinary becomes ordinary, and your mind begins to hunger for more. This is the cycle psychologists call hedonic adaptation, the quiet treadmill that keeps you running but never arriving. The brain evolved this way to ensure survival, not satisfaction. Dopamine's role is not to give lasting happiness, but to push us toward the next thing. In the ancient world, this meant seeking food, shelter, and safety. In the modern one, it means endless scrolling, endless upgrades, endless comparison. You keep climbing a ladder whose top never appears.
True well-being, however, begins when you step off that treadmill. Studies in positive psychology reveal that gratitude, mindfulness, and presence interrupt the adaptation loop. They anchor you to now,
the only place joy truly lives. When you savor instead of chase, the ordinary becomes miraculous again. The taste of coffee, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter, all regain their original brilliance. The Stoics warned against confusing pleasure with peace. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Constant comfort dulls the soul. Real happiness, paradoxically, often comes from struggle, purpose, and meaning, not indulgence. Life is short. You can spend it chasing higher highs or deepening your appreciation of what already is. The first path exhausts you. The second expands you. Stop asking for more pleasure. Ask for more presence. That is where fulfillment hides. Rule 8, the identity rule. You become what you repeatedly do. We like to think identity is something we discover, a hidden truth buried deep within us, waiting to be found. But psychology teaches that identity is not unearthed, it is built. Every action you take, every habit you repeat, casts a silent vote for the person you are becoming. The self is not a fixed sculpture. It is a slow, ongoing carving made through daily behavior. Behavioral psychology calls this self-perception theory. It suggests that we infer who we are from observing what we do. When you act with discipline, you begin to believe you are disciplined. When you show kindness, you begin to see yourself as kind. The brain needs consistency, so it aligns your internal story with your external actions. That's how small habits become identity, and how identity sustains those same habits in return. This is the foundation of lasting change. You can't think your way into a new life. You must act your way into one. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be good, first believe that you are bad." In other words, acknowledge the gap, then bridge it through repetition. Don't wait to feel confident to act confidently. Act as the confident do, and the feeling will follow. Your actions are the mirrors reflecting your becoming. Each day offers 1,000 opportunities to vote for the person you want to be or against them. No single act defines you, but the pattern does. In a short life, habits are destiny. Ask yourself, what kind of person would do the things I want to do? Then, do them. Again and again until there's no separation between the doing and the being. That's how identity is born. Rule 9. The rule of emotional regulation. Calm is a superpower. In every moment of conflict, pressure, or uncertainty, there exists a small gap, the space between what happens and how you respond. Within that space lies your entire power. The ability to remain calm when the world pulls at your nerves is not a natural gift. It is a learned mastery. Emotional regulation, the capacity to manage and interpret your feelings without being ruled by them, is one of the highest forms of intelligence. Neuroscience shows that when you're triggered, the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm, floods your body with fight or flight signals. Logic shuts down. Words you didn't mean are spoken. Decisions you'll regret are made. But when you learn to pause, to breathe, to name what you feel, you shift control back to the prefrontal cortex, the rational seat of judgment. That brief act of awareness rewires the outcome. The Stoics practiced this long before psychology mapped it. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Calm is not the absence of emotion, but command over it. It's the art of standing in the storm without being swept away. Modern psychology calls this response flexibility, the ability to create distance between stimulus and reaction. The calm person isn't emotionless. They simply refuse to be enslaved by emotion. They use feeling as information, not instruction. In a short life, peace becomes priceless. The more mastery you gain over your inner weather, the less control the outer world has over you. Calm doesn't make you passive, it makes you precise. It turns panic into patience, anger into understanding, and chaos into clarity. To be calm is to be powerful, because nothing can command you without your permission.
Rule 10. The mortality filter. Choose what you'd still do if you had 1 year left. Imagine waking up tomorrow with the quiet knowledge that you have 1 year left to live. Not a day more, not a day less. What would fall away from your schedule? Which worries would suddenly feel meaningless?
Rule 9. The rule of emotional regulation. Calm is a superpower. In every moment of conflict, pressure, or uncertainty, there exists a small gap, the space between what happens and how you respond. Within that space lies your entire power. The ability to remain calm when the world pulls at your nerves is not a natural gift, it is a learned mastery. Emotional regulation, the capacity to manage and interpret your feelings without being ruled by them, is one of the highest forms of intelligence. Neuroscience shows that when you're triggered, the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm, floods your body with fight or flight signals. Logic shuts down. Words you didn't mean are spoken. Decisions you'll regret are made. But when you learn to pause, to breathe, to name what you feel, you shift control back to the prefrontal cortex, the rational seat of judgment. That brief act of awareness rewires the outcome. The Stoics practiced this long before psychology mapped it. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Calm is not the absence of emotion, but command over it. It's the art of standing in the storm without being swept away. Modern psychology calls this response flexibility, the ability to create distance between stimulus and reaction. The calm person isn't emotionless. They simply refuse to be enslaved by emotion. They use feeling as information, not instruction. In a short life, peace becomes priceless. The more mastery you gain over your inner weather, the less control the outer world has over you. Calm doesn't make you passive, it makes you precise. It turns panic into patience, anger into understanding, and chaos into clarity. To be calm is to be powerful, because nothing can command you without your permission.
Rule 10. The mortality filter. Choose what you'd still do if you had 1 year left. Imagine waking up tomorrow with the quiet knowledge that you have 1 year left to live. Not a day more, not a day less. What would fall away from your schedule? Which worries would suddenly feel meaningless? And what or who would remain? This thought experiment, used in existential psychology, is called mortality salience. It's not meant to frighten you, it's meant to focus you. When you live as if time were endless, life becomes casual. You postpone, you drift, you make choices for convenience rather than meaning. But when you remember that your time is finite, your decisions sharpen. The trivial loses its voice, the essential begins to speak. The mortality filter is a practice of using death as a lens, a way to measure what's worth your days. The Stoics practice this daily. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. To live with this awareness is not morbid, it's clarifying. It transforms ambition into contribution, urgency into purpose. Modern psychology supports this. Studies on end-of-life reflection show that awareness of mortality often increases gratitude, forgiveness, and authentic living. People stop trying to win at life and start trying to experience it fully. Ask yourself often, would this still matter if I had 1 year left? If not, release it. If yes, give it everything. A short life can still be a complete one if it's lived deliberately. Death, paradoxically, is not the opposite of life, but its sculptor. It shapes each day into something rare and luminous. You can't control how long you live, but you can decide how deeply. And that decision, made daily, is what makes life truly full.